The bullet that should have killed Owen Brennan whistled past his ear so close he felt the heat sear his skin. And as he stumbled backward over the sun-bleached rocks of the New Mexico desert, he understood with sudden clarity that he was about to die alone under the merciless August sun. His horse had bolted an hour ago when the rattlesnake spooked it. His canteen lay somewhere back in the scrubland where he had dropped it during his frantic scramble for cover. And now, 3 men with rifles were closing in on him like vultures circling a dying animal. It was the summer of 1878, and Owen had been trailing stolen cattle for the Johnson Ranch when he stumbled upon these rustlers, recognizing too late that they were the notorious Garrett gang, wanted for murder across 3 territories. His revolver was empty, 6 shots fired and not a single one finding its mark in his panic. Owen pressed his back against the boulder, feeling the stone burn through his shirt, tasting copper and dust in his mouth. 23 years old, and this was how it ended. Shot dead in the desert between Deeming and the Mexican border, his body left for the coyotes and buzzards. He closed his eyes, thinking of his mother back in Kansas, of the letter he had been meaning to write for 3 months now. "Got him cornered, Charlie," one of the rustlers called out, his voice carrying across the empty landscape. Nowhere left to run. Owen heard their boots crunching on gravel, getting closer. He tried to steady his breathing, tried to prepare himself for what was coming. At least it would be quick. At least he would not die slowly of thirst like so many others had in this God-forsaken stretch of desert. Then a single gunshot cracked through the air, but Owen felt no impact, no burning pain in his chest. Instead, he heard a man cry out, heard the heavy thud of a body hitting the ground. 2 more shots followed in rapid succession, and then confused shouting, boots scrambling for cover. Jesus Christ, where did that come from? Tommy's hit. Tommy's down. Owen risked a glance around the boulder and saw one of the rustlers lying motionless in the sand, a dark stain spreading across his chest. The other 2 had taken cover behind a cluster of creosote bushes, their rifles pointed toward a rocky outcropping about 50 yards to the east. Owen could not see who was shooting at them, but whoever it was had just saved his life, at least temporarily. Another shot rang out, kicking up dust inches from one rustler's boot. The man yelped and scrambled backward. His companion, the one called Charlie, fired blindly toward the rocks, working the lever of his rifle frantically. The hidden shooter did not return fire this time, just waited with the patience of someone who knew the desert, knew that panic and fear would do half the work. "This is not worth it, Charlie," the second rustler said, his voice high with fear. "That's got to be Morgan Oliver. Nobody else shoots like that in these parts." "Morgan Oliver's just a story," Charlie spat back, but Owen heard the uncertainty in his voice. "Tommy's dead, and I am not dying for a bunch of cattle that are not even ours anymore. I am leaving." The rustler broke from cover and ran for his horse, mounted in one smooth motion, and kicked the animal into a gallop heading north. Charlie cursed and fired one more wild shot toward the rocks before following his companion, leaving their dead friend where he had fallen. Owen waited, hardly daring to breathe, his heart hammering against his ribs. The desert fell silent again except for the whisper of wind through the sage. Minutes passed like hours. The sun beat down mercilessly, and Owen felt dizzy with thirst and heat exhaustion. Black spots danced at the edges of his vision. Then he heard the sound of boots on rock, someone approaching with careful, measured steps. Owen pressed himself against the boulder, wishing uselessly for bullets that were not there. A shadow fell across him, blocking the sun for a blessed moment. "You can come out," a voice said. Not a man's voice. A woman's voice, low and slightly rough, like whiskey poured over gravel. "They are gone, and they will not be coming back, not with Tommy dead." Owen hesitated, then slowly moved out from behind the boulder, squinting against the harsh light. The figure standing over him was indeed a woman, though everything about her spoke of someone who had learned to survive in a world that showed no mercy to the weak. She wore men's clothing, canvas trousers and a dusty brown shirt, with a leather vest that had seen better days. A wide-brimmed hat shaded her face, and a gun belt hung low on her hips, the holster tied down like a gunfighter's. She held a rifle loosely in her hands, the barrel still pointing toward the ground. As Owen's eyes adjusted, he could make out her features properly. She was perhaps 25 or 26, with sun-darkened skin and eyes the color of sage in summer, a green-gray that seemed to shift in the light. Dark hair, almost black, hung in a long braid down her back. Her face was striking rather than pretty, with strong cheekbones and a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile. "You are either very brave or very stupid, trailing the Garrett gang alone," she said, studying him with those strange eyes. "Which is it?" "Stupid," Owen managed to croak out, his throat so dry the word barely formed. "Definitely stupid. I did not know it was them until it was too late." She nodded as if this confirmed something she already suspected. Then she unslung a canteen from her shoulder and tossed it to him. Owen caught it clumsily, fumbled with the cap, and drank deeply. The water was warm, but it tasted like salvation. He forced himself to stop after a few gulps, knowing better than to drink too much too fast in this heat. "Thank you," he said. "You saved my life. Those men would have killed me." "They would have," she agreed, taking the canteen back when he offered it. "And they still might if you do not get somewhere safe soon. This desert will kill you just as dead as a bullet if you stay out here much longer. Where is your horse?" "Ran off. Rattlesnake spooked him about an hour back." Owen tried to stand, but his legs wobbled and he had to grab the boulder for support. The woman moved forward quickly, steadying him with a hand on his elbow. Her grip was strong, her hands calloused like a working man's. "Can you walk?" she asked. "I think so. Just need a minute." "We do not have a minute. The sun is at its worst right now, and you are already showing signs of heat sickness. My horse is just over that rise. We need to move." She was right. Owen knew she was right, but his body felt like it was made of lead. Every movement took enormous effort. The woman seemed to sense this and shifted her position, ducking under his arm to take more of his weight. "Come on, Cowboy," she said, her voice softer now. "One foot in front of the other. You did not survive those rustlers just to die of the heat." They made their way slowly across the burning sand, Owen leaning heavily on this strange woman who had appeared out of nowhere to save him. His mind felt foggy, thoughts coming slowly through the haze of heat and exhaustion. Who was she? Why had she helped him? The rustler had mentioned a name, Morgan something. Morgan Oliver. But that could not be right. Morgan Oliver was a notorious outlaw, wanted in New Mexico, Arizona, and Texas for bank robbery and horse theft. There were wanted posters in every town from here to El Paso. And Morgan Oliver was definitely, absolutely, supposed to be a man. They crested the rise, and Owen saw her horse waiting in the shade of a large boulder, a beautiful paint mare with intelligent eyes. The horse nickered softly as they approached. Next to the mare stood a second horse, saddled and ready, and Owen recognized it immediately as his own buckskin gelding. "You found my horse," he said stupidly. "Found him drinking at a water hole about a mile north. Figured he belonged to someone, so I brought him along. Lucky for you." She helped Owen over to the buckskin, practically lifting him into the saddle. He swayed dangerously once he was up, gripping the saddle horn to keep from falling. The woman mounted her paint in one fluid motion and brought the mare alongside Owen's gelding. She pulled a length of rope from her saddle bag and tied one end to her saddle horn, the other to Owen's. "Hey," Owen protested weakly. "What are you doing? Making sure you do not fall off and get left behind. You are in no condition to ride alone." She fixed him with that steady gaze. "There is a place about 5 miles from here, an old abandoned mining camp. There is water there and shade. We can rest until the worst of the heat passes, then figure out what to do with you." "I need to get back to Deeming," Owen said. "I work for the Johnson Ranch." "They will be wondering where I am." "The Johnson Ranch can wait. Right now you need water, rest, and shelter in that order. Otherwise you will be dead before sunset, and it will not matter who is wondering where you are." She clicked her tongue, and the paint started walking, pulling Owen's buckskin along behind. They rode in silence across the desert landscape, the sun beating down without mercy. Owen drifted in and out of awareness, sometimes seeing the world clearly, other times feeling like he was watching events unfold from a great distance. He noticed details in fragments. The way the woman sat her horse with absolute confidence, the rifle scabbard on her saddle, the way she constantly scanned the horizon as if expecting trouble. At some point, and Owen could not have said how much later, they arrived at the mining camp. It was little more than a few collapsed buildings, and the dark mouth of a mine shaft set into the rocky hillside. But there was a small spring bubbling up from the ground, creating a pool of clear water surrounded by green grass and even a few stunted trees. It looked like paradise after the burning desert. The woman dismounted and helped Owen down from his horse. His legs gave out completely this time, and he would have fallen if she had not caught him. She half carried, half dragged him to the shade of one of the remaining structures, a 3-walled shack with part of its roof still intact. The temperature dropped at least 10 degrees in the shade, and Owen felt some of the fog begin to lift from his mind. She brought him more water, made him drink slowly this time, and poured some over his head and neck. The coolness felt like a miracle. Owen leaned back against the rough wood wall and closed his eyes, feeling human again for the first time in hours. "Better?" the woman asked. "Much better." "Thank you. I owe you my life." "Yes, you do." She said it matter-of-factly, without pride or false modesty, just stating a simple truth. She moved away to tend to the horses, leading them to the water and loosening their saddle girths to let them breathe easier. Owen watched her work, noting the economical efficiency of her movements, the way she checked both horses thoroughly for any sign of injury or distress. When she finished with the horses, she came back and sat down near Owen, though not too close, keeping a careful distance between them. She pulled out a piece of dried meat from a pouch and tore it in half, offering him part. "Eat something. Small bites. Your stomach will not thank you if you eat too fast." Owen took the meat and chewed slowly. It was tough and salty but tasted wonderful. They ate in silence for a while, the only sound the whisper of wind through the ruins and the soft sound of the horses drinking at the pool. "You are Morgan Oliver," Owen said finally. It was not a question. The woman looked at him sharply, her hand moving almost imperceptibly closer to the revolver on her hip. "What makes you say that?" One of those rustlers mentioned the name, said nobody else shoots like that in these parts. "And you know this desert like someone who has been running through it for a while, staying ahead of the law." She was quiet for a long moment, her face unreadable. Then she nodded slowly. "Yes, I am Morgan Oliver, and now that you know that, we have a problem." "I do not see why," Owen said. "You saved my life. I am not going to turn you in for that. You say that now. But there is a $500 reward for my capture. That is a lot of money for a ranch hand, probably more than you make in a year." "Probably," Owen admitted, "but I pay my debts. And anyway, half of what they say about you is probably lies. The law is not always right about who the real criminals are. Morgan studied him with those sage-colored eyes, as if trying to determine whether he was sincere or just playing her. Finally, she seemed to reach some conclusion and relaxed slightly, her hand moving away from her gun. "You are either a very good man or a very foolish one," she said. "I have been hearing that a lot today," Owen said, and was surprised when it made her smile. Just a brief quirk of her lips, but a real smile nonetheless. It transformed her face, softening the hard edges, and Owen felt something shift in his chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the desert heat. "What is your name, Cowboy?" Morgan asked. "Owen Brennan. I have been working at the Johnson Ranch for about 6 months now, came out from Kansas." "Kansas is a long way from here. What brought you to New Mexico?" Owen shrugged. "Wanted to see more of the world, I guess. My father has a farm back in Kansas, wanted me to take it over when he got too old to work it anymore, but I was never much for farming. Wanted something different, something with more freedom to it." "Freedom," Morgan repeated, and there was something bitter in her voice. "That is a funny word. Most people think freedom means doing whatever you want, going wherever you please. But I have been running for 3 years now, and I have never felt less free. There is not a town I can walk into without checking the wanted posters first, not a moment I can relax without watching over my shoulder. That is not freedom. That is just a different kind of prison. Why are you running?" Owen asked. "What did you do?" Morgan was silent for so long that Owen thought she was not going to answer. She stared out at the desert, at the shimmering heat waves rising from the sand, her expression distant. "I killed a man," she said finally. "Back in 1875, in a town called Silver City. His name was Vernon Hutchins, and he was a wealthy mine owner, respected by everyone in town. And he beat my sister to death when she refused to do what he wanted in the brothel where she worked." Owen felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Your sister worked in a brothel. Our parents died when we were young. Cholera. I was 15, Mary was 13. We had no other family, no money, nowhere to go. We did what we had to do to survive." Morgan's voice was flat, emotionless, as if she was reciting facts about someone else's life. "I tried to get work as a seamstress, as a laundress, anything respectable. But respectable people did not want to hire an orphan girl with no references. So we ended up at Mother Catherine's place on the edge of town. It was not what we wanted, but it kept us alive." "You do not have to tell me this," Owen said quietly. "Yes, I do. If we are going to travel together, even for a little while, you need to know who I am and what I have done." She took a breath and continued. "Vernon Hutchins liked young girls, liked them scared. He came to the brothel every week, and he always asked for Mary because she was so small and fragile looking. I tried to warn her, tried to tell Mother Catherine not to send her with him, but money talked louder than my concerns. Hutchins paid well." Morgan's hands had clenched into fists, her knuckles white. "One night he went too far, beat her so badly she could barely walk when he was done with her. Mother Catherine sent for a doctor, but it was too late. Mary died 2 days later. She was 16 years old. Jesus," Owen breathed. "The sheriff did nothing. Said there was no proof Hutchins had killed her, that working girls died all the time from disease and accidents. Said Mary probably brought it on herself somehow. So I waited until Hutchins came back to the brothel the next week. I walked right up to him in the parlor and shot him in the chest, killed him in front of a dozen witnesses. Then I took his horse and his money and ran." "And you have been running ever since," Owen said. "Ever since," Morgan confirmed. "Picked up a few other charges along the way, robbed a bank in Tucson because I needed money, stole horses when I needed fresh mounts, shot a bounty hunter in Socorro when he tried to collect the reward. Nothing I am proud of, but nothing I would take back either. Everything I did to survive. Owen absorbed this information, turning it over in his mind. By the letter of the law, Morgan was a murderer and a thief. She deserved to hang. But looking at her now, seeing the pain and anger in her eyes when she spoke about her sister, Owen could not bring himself to judge her. She had been dealt a terrible hand, and she had played it the only way she knew how. "I am sorry about your sister," he said. "No one should have to go through what you both went through." Morgan looked at him with surprise, as if she had expected condemnation rather than sympathy. "You are a strange man, Owen Brennan. Most people, if they knew what I just told you, would be reaching for their guns or planning how to collect that reward. I am not most people, I guess." Owen shifted position, wincing as his muscles protested. The heat sickness was fading, but he still felt weak and shaky. "Besides, you saved my life. That counts for more than wanted posters." They fell silent again, but it was a more comfortable silence now, the tension that had been between them easing. The sun moved slowly across the sky, the shadows lengthening as afternoon crept toward evening. Morgan brought more water from the spring and checked Owen's condition with practiced efficiency, feeling his forehead for fever, checking his pulse. "You will live," she announced. "Though you need to stay out of the sun for the rest of today. We can leave at dusk, travel during the cool hours. I can get you close enough to Deeming that you can find your way back to the ranch." "And where will you go?" Owen asked. Morgan shrugged. "Mexico, probably. Cross the border and lose myself down there for a while. Things are getting too hot in New Mexico. Too many bounty hunters, too many close calls. Time to move on." "Sounds lonely," Owen observed. "It is what it is." But there was something wistful in her voice, a hint of longing for things that could never be. Owen made a decision then, one that surprised him even as the words left his mouth. "Come back to the ranch with me." Morgan stared at him as if he had lost his mind. "What? Come back to the Johnson ranch? They are always looking for help, especially this time of year. You could work there, earn honest money. You know horses and you can obviously shoot. Those are valuable skills on a ranch. Owen, I am wanted in 3 territories. There are posters with my face on them in every town within 100 miles. How long do you think it would be before someone recognized me?" "No one would expect Morgan Oliver to be a woman," Owen pointed out. "Half the people looking for you are looking for a man. And the posters, they are usually not very accurate. Artists draw what they imagine, not what is real. If you dressed like a ranch hand, kept your head down, went by a different name, who would know?" "This is insane," Morgan said, but Owen could see she was considering it, could see the wheels turning in her mind. "Maybe," Owen agreed. "But you said yourself that running is just another kind of prison. Maybe it is time to stop running. Maybe it is time to build something instead of just surviving." "Why do you care?" Morgan asked, and there was genuine confusion in her voice. "We just met. You do not owe me anything beyond a thank you for saving your life." Owen thought about that, searching for the right words. "I do not know," he said honestly. "Maybe because you remind me that there is more to people than what the world makes of them. Or maybe because I think everyone deserves a second chance. Or maybe just because I want to help if I can." Morgan was quiet for a long time, her gaze drifting between Owen and the desert beyond, weighing possibilities, calculating risks. Finally, she shook her head, but there was a hint of a smile on her lips. "You really are crazy, Owen Brennan. But I suppose I have done crazier things than trust a man I just met." She paused, then extended her hand. "If I do this, if I come back with you, I need your word that you will not betray me, that you will keep my secret no matter what." Owen took her hand, feeling the strength in her grip, the calluses on her palm. "You have my word. I will not betray you." They shook on it, and Owen felt that warmth in his chest again, stronger this time. He told himself it was just gratitude, just the natural response to someone who had saved his life. But looking into Morgan's sage-colored eyes, feeling the connection that seemed to spark between them even through the simple touch of their hands, he knew it was something more. Something unexpected and dangerous and wonderful all at once. They spent the rest of the afternoon at the abandoned mine, resting in the shade and making plans. Morgan would need a new name, something unremarkable that would not draw attention. She suggested Martha, after her mother, and Owen agreed it was a good choice. Martha Owen would be her name at the ranch, a widow from Texas looking for work after her husband died. It was a common enough story in these times that no one would question it too closely. As evening approached and the temperature finally began to drop, they prepared to leave. Morgan checked both horses thoroughly, making sure they were well rested and watered. She helped Owen into his saddle, watching to make sure he was steady enough to ride. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Better. Still a little weak, but I can make it to Deeming. We will take it slow, no point in rushing and having you pass out again." She mounted her paint mare and looked at Owen seriously. "Last chance to change your mind about this. Once we ride into Deeming together, once I am known at your ranch, there is no going back. If someone figures out who I really am, you will be in trouble too for harboring a fugitive." "I know the risks," Owen said. "I am not changing my mind." Morgan nodded, something that might have been respect showing in her eyes. "Then let us go, before I come to my senses and run for Mexico like I should." They rode out as the sun sank toward the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and red and purple. The desert looked different in this light, less harsh and forbidding, almost beautiful. They followed a trail that wound between rocky outcroppings and through stands of creosote and mesquite, heading northeast toward Deeming. As they rode, Owen found himself stealing glances at Morgan, studying her profile in the fading light. She sat her horse with the easy grace of someone who had spent half her life in the saddle, her eyes constantly scanning the landscape for danger. There was something captivating about her, something that went beyond simple physical attraction. She had a strength about her, a core of steel forged by hardship and loss, but there was vulnerability there too, carefully hidden but present nonetheless. "What are you looking at?" Morgan asked without turning her head. "Nothing. Just thinking." "About what?" "About how strange life is. This morning I was a ranch hand chasing stolen cattle. Now I am riding through the desert with a wanted outlaw, planning to help her hide from the law. If someone had told me this was how my day would go, I would have called them crazy." "Life has a way of surprising us," Morgan agreed. "Usually not in pleasant ways, but sometimes the surprises are good ones." She paused, then added more quietly, "Maybe this is one of the good ones. I hope it is." "It will be," Owen said with more confidence than he felt. "You will see. A few months from now, you will be just another ranch hand, working honest, sleeping sound, with no one looking over your shoulder." "That sounds like a dream," Morgan said softly. "I have been having nightmares for so long, I almost forgot what good dreams feel like." They rode on as the stars began to appear overhead, brilliant and uncountable in the clear desert sky. The temperature dropped rapidly once the sun was gone, going from scorching to almost chilly within the span of an hour. Owen was grateful for the coolness after the brutal heat of the day, though his body ached from the combination of heat exhaustion and hours in the saddle. Around midnight, they stopped to rest the horses and eat a little more of Morgan's dried supplies. She had built a small fire using dried mesquite wood, keeping the flames low to avoid drawing attention. The firelight played across her features, highlighting the strong bones of her face, the determination in her eyes. "Can I ask you something?" Owen said as they ate. "You can ask. I might not answer." "Why did you help me? You could have just ridden away, let those rustlers kill me. It would have been safer for you. No witnesses, no complications. Why did you risk yourself to save a stranger?" Morgan was quiet for a moment, staring into the fire. "I asked myself the same thing while I was setting up that shot. Told myself it was not my business, that getting involved was stupid. But then I saw you there, backed against that boulder, about to die, and I thought about all the times I wished someone had helped me when I needed it. All the times I prayed for someone to step in and save Mary, to stop what was happening to us. And no one ever did. No one ever cared enough to risk anything for two orphan girls who did not matter to anybody." She looked up at Owen, and in the firelight he could see the ghosts of old pain in her eyes. "So I took the shot. Because maybe, just maybe, if I saved someone else who needed help, it would balance out some of the darkness, make some small piece of the world a little bit better." "I think you did more than make the world a little bit better," Owen said quietly. "You saved a life. That matters. That will always matter." "Will it?" Morgan asked, and she sounded so tired, so worn down by years of running and hiding. "Sometimes I wonder if anything matters at all. If everything I do just makes things worse." Owen moved closer to her, not touching but near enough that she could feel his presence, his solidarity. "It matters. You matter. Do not let the world convince you otherwise just because it has been cruel to you." Morgan looked at him for a long moment, searching his face as if trying to determine whether he truly meant what he said or was just offering empty platitudes. Whatever she saw there seemed to satisfy her, because she nodded slowly. "Thank you," she said simply, "for saying that. And for offering me a chance at something different. Even if it does not work out, even if I end up running again, I will remember that someone gave me that chance." "It will work out," Owen insisted. "I will make sure of it." They finished their small meal and put out the fire, then mounted up again to continue their journey. The miles passed beneath the horses' hooves, the desert slowly giving way to grassland as they approached the Rio Grande Valley where Deeming lay. They saw no one else on the trail, the world seeming empty except for the two of them and the endless sky above. Dawn was breaking when they finally saw the town in the distance, a collection of low buildings sprawling across the flat land near the railroad tracks. Deeming had grown rapidly in recent years, since the Southern Pacific and the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe railways had met there, transforming it from a sleepy way station into a bustling hub of commerce and activity. It was still rough around the edges, the kind of place where questions were not asked too loudly and a person's past was their own business as long as they did not cause trouble. "Remember," Owen said as they approached the outskirts of town, "you are Martha Owen, widow from Texas. You are looking for work and you are good with horses. Keep your head down, do not make eye contact with the law and let me do most of the talking." "I know how to stay out of sight," Morgan said dryly. "I have had plenty of practice." They rode down the main street just as the town was waking up, shopkeepers opening their doors, early risers heading out to start their day's work. A few people glanced at them with mild curiosity, but no one paid them much attention. Just two more dusty travelers passing through, nothing remarkable about that. The Johnson Ranch was about 3 miles outside of town, a sprawling operation that ran several thousand head of cattle across 10,000 acres of grazing land. The main house was a large adobe structure with a covered porch that wrapped around 3 sides. Beyond it stood the bunkhouse, the barn, several corrals, and various outbuildings. As Owen and Morgan rode up, several ranch hands looked up from their morning chores to watch their approach. Thomas Johnson himself came out of the main house, a big man in his 50s with a weathered face and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He looked Owen up and down, taking in his bedraggled appearance and the strange woman accompanying him. "Brennan," Johnson said. "We were starting to worry about you. You have been gone 2 days. What happened?" "Ran into trouble, Mr. Johnson. Found those rustlers you sent me to track. Turned out to be the Garrett gang. They got the drop on me and would have killed me if not for Martha here." Owen gestured to Morgan. "She ran them off and got me to water before I died of heat sickness. I owe her my life." Johnson's eyes shifted to Morgan, assessing her with the practiced gaze of someone who had hired and fired dozens of ranch hands over the years. "That's so. You must be quite a shot to run off the Garrett gang." "I have some skill with a rifle," Morgan said carefully, keeping her voice neutral and her eyes downcast in a show of feminine modesty that seemed at odds with everything else about her. "And I know when someone needs help. Could not very well leave him to die in the desert." "Grateful to you for bringing him back, Miss Owen." "Martha Owen. I am a widow, sir, from down Texas way. My husband passed 6 months ago and I have been working my way north looking for employment. I understand ranches sometimes hire women for kitchen work or laundry." Johnson frowned slightly. "Not usually women who ride around the desert shooting at outlaws." "I can cook and clean as well as any woman," Morgan said, which was probably a lie, but she delivered it convincingly. "But I am also good with horses and I am not afraid of hard work. I will take any honest employment you might have available." Johnson considered this, stroking his mustache thoughtfully. Owen held his breath, praying that the man would say yes, that Morgan would get her chance at a new life. "We do need someone to help in the kitchen," Johnson said finally. "My wife has been complaining that the workload is too much with just her and old Rosa, and we could use another hand who knows horses. My foreman has been saying we need to break some of the young stock before fall." He looked at Morgan directly. "I will give you a trial period, 2 weeks. If you work out, the job is yours permanent. $20 a month plus room and board. You can stay in the small cabin behind the main house. It is not much, but it is dry and has a bed." "That is more than fair, sir." "Thank you," Morgan said, and Owen heard the genuine gratitude in her voice. "Do not thank me yet. Work starts at dawn and does not finish until all the chores are done. I run a working ranch here, not a charity. Pull your weight or move along." But Johnson's voice was not unkind, just matter of fact. He turned back to Owen. "Get yourself cleaned up and rested. You look like hell. I want a full report on the Garrett gang later, everything you saw and where they were headed." "Yes, sir." Johnson nodded and headed back toward the house, hollering for his foreman to come show Martha where she would be staying. A leathery old cowboy named Pete ambled over and gestured for Morgan to follow him. She dismounted and led her paint mare after Pete, glancing back once at Owen with an expression he could not quite read. Relief, hope, fear, maybe all three. Owen took his buckskin to the barn and unsaddled him, rubbing the horse down thoroughly and making sure he had plenty of grain and water. His own body was crying out for rest, but he felt too keyed up to sleep, his mind racing with everything that had happened in the past 24 hours. He had met a woman in the desert, learned she was a wanted outlaw, and convinced her to hide on the ranch where he worked. By any reasonable measure, he had lost his mind. And yet, standing there in the barn with dust motes floating through the shafts of morning sunlight, Owen felt more alive than he had in months, more purposeful. Like he was exactly where he was supposed to be, doing exactly what he was meant to do. Over the following days, Martha Owen proved herself to be everything she had claimed and more. She worked in the kitchen with Johnson's wife Rebecca and the cook Rosa, preparing meals for the dozen ranch hands who worked the property. She also spent time in the corrals working with the young horses, demonstrating a gift for gentling wild stock that had the foreman shaking his head in amazement. Never seen anything like it, Pete told Owen one evening as they watched Martha work with a particularly spirited 3-year-old mare. That horse threw 2 of our best riders yesterday, but Martha just walks up to her calm as you please, whispers a few words, and suddenly the mare is following her around like a puppy. Woman has got a gift. Owen watched as Martha ran her hands down the mare's neck, speaking too softly for him to hear the words. The horse, which had been snorting and dancing just moments before, stood perfectly still, her ears forward and her eyes soft. There was something almost magical about it, the way Martha could connect with animals that way. She is something special, Owen agreed, and Pete shot him a knowing look. Getting sweet on her, are you? What? No, I mean she saved my life, so Owen stammered, feeling his face heat up. Pete laughed, a dry chuckle that turned into a cough. Boy, I have been working ranches since before you were born. I know what a man looks like when he is falling for a woman. And you look at Martha, Owen, the same way you used to look at your Sunday dinner back when we had that stretch of bad rations. That is ridiculous, Owen protested, but he knew it was a weak denial. The truth was he had been finding excuses to be near Martha ever since she arrived at the ranch. Offering to help with the horses she was training, volunteering to carry water to the kitchen, sitting near her at mealtimes. He told himself he was just making sure she was settling in all right, that he was just being friendly to someone he had brought to the ranch. But deep down he knew it was more than that. There was something about Martha that drew him like a moth to flame. Maybe it was her strength, the way she faced challenges head-on without complaint. Maybe it was the vulnerability he sometimes glimpsed beneath her tough exterior. The moments when her guard dropped and he saw the lonely, hurt woman underneath. Or maybe it was simply that she understood loss and hardship in a way few people did, and that shared understanding created a connection between them that went deeper than simple attraction. Whatever it was, Owen found himself thinking about her constantly. The way she moved, efficient and graceful. The rare moments when she smiled and her whole face lit up. The sound of her voice in the morning when she greeted the horses. The strength in her hands when she worked with rope or reins. Every little detail seemed significant, worth noticing and remembering. He was falling in love with her. It was a terrifying and exhilarating realization, made more complicated by the fact that Martha Owen was not really Martha Owen at all, but Morgan Oliver, a woman with a bounty on her head and a past full of darkness. About a week after Martha arrived at the ranch, Owen found her one evening sitting on the fence of the far corral, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. He climbed up and sat beside her, the two of them silent for a few moments, just watching the day die. "Beautiful out here," Martha said finally. "I had forgotten how nice it could be to just stop and look at something beautiful without wondering if someone was about to shoot at you." "Is it getting easier?" Owen asked. "Being here, I mean, not running. Some days yes, some days no. There are moments when I forget I am supposed to be someone else, when I almost feel like Martha Owen could be real, could be who I actually am. And then something will remind me, some small thing, and I will remember that I am living a lie." She turned to look at him. "Do you ever regret bringing me here, putting yourself at risk like this?" "No," Owen said without hesitation. "Not for a second. Why not? You barely know me. For all you know, everything I told you about my sister and why I killed Hutchins could be lies. I could be exactly the kind of dangerous criminal the wanted posters say I am. But you are not," Owen said simply. "I know you are not. How can you be so sure? Because I see how you are with the horses, how patient and gentle you are with them. Someone who can show that much care for an animal is not a bad person, no matter what they have done." He paused, gathering his courage. And because I see who you are when you think no one is watching. The way you helped Rosa when she hurt her wrist last week, took over all the heavy work without being asked. The way you always save some of your dinner to feed the barn cats. The way you looked at the sunset just now, like it was the most precious thing in the world. Those are not the actions of a bad person. Martha was quiet for a long moment, and when she spoke her voice was thick with emotion. You see me more clearly than I see myself sometimes. I have spent so long thinking of myself as a killer, as someone the world would be better off without, that I forgot there could be other parts to who I am. There are a lot of parts to who you are, Owen said softly, and I would like to get to know all of them if you will let me. She looked at him sharply, surprise and something else, something hopeful flashing across her face. Owen, what are you saying? I am saying that I care about you, more than I probably should given how recently we met, but I cannot help it. Ever since that day in the desert, I have not been able to stop thinking about you, about how brave you are, how strong, about how you saved my life when you could have just ridden away, about how you are trying so hard to build something new here even though you are scared. He took a breath and said the words that had been building inside him for days. I think I am falling in love with you, Martha, or Morgan. Whoever you are, I am falling in love with that person. Martha stared at him, her eyes wide, looking almost frightened. Owen, you do not know what you are saying. I am wanted. I have killed people. If anyone finds out who I really am, they will hang me. And they will probably hang you too for helping me hide. You cannot love someone like that. You cannot tie yourself to that kind of future. I am not in love with your past, Owen said firmly. I am in love with who you are now, who you are becoming. And as for the future, nobody knows what is coming. All we have is right now, this moment. And in this moment, I know how I feel. This is insane, Martha whispered, but Owen saw tears gathering in her eyes. This is the most insane thing anyone has ever said to me. Maybe, but you did not say you did not feel the same way. Owen reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, and took her hand in his. Her fingers were rough and calloused, strong from years of hard work, but they trembled slightly as his hand closed around them. Tell me you do not feel anything for me, and I will never mention this again. We can just be friends, just co-workers. But if you feel even a fraction of what I am feeling, then say so. Give us a chance. Martha looked down at their joined hands, at the way her smaller hand fit so perfectly in his larger one. A tear rolled down her cheek and she did not bother to wipe it away. I do feel something, she said quietly. I have been trying not to, trying to keep my distance, because I knew this could not work, knew I would just end up hurting you. But every time I see you, every time you smile at me or say something kind, I feel something crack inside me, some wall I built to keep people out. And it terrifies me, Owen. It terrifies me because I have not let myself feel anything like this since Mary died. I have been so focused on survival, on running, that I forgot what it felt like to want something more than just the next day. Then let yourself want it, Owen urged. Let yourself have something good for once. You deserve that much. Do I? Martha asked, and she sounded so uncertain, so full of doubt. After everything I have done, do I really deserve anything good? Yes, Owen said fiercely. Yes, you do. You made choices in impossible situations. You survived when most people would have given up. That does not make you evil. That makes you human. Martha closed her eyes and more tears leaked out, running down her sun-darkened cheeks. Owen reached up with his free hand and gently wiped them away, his thumb brushing across her skin with infinite tenderness. She opened her eyes and looked at him, and in that moment, Owen saw everything she was feeling written plainly on her face. The fear, the hope, the desperate longing for connection after so many years of isolation. "If we do this," Martha said slowly, "if we try this, you have to promise me something. If things go wrong, if someone figures out who I am, you have to let me run. Do not try to come with me, do not try to protect me. I could not live with myself if you ended up on the gallows because of me." "I cannot promise that," Owen said honestly. "If you run, I am going with you. I am not losing you now that I found you." "Owen, no. You do not get to decide this alone. If we are doing this, if we are really trying to build something together, then we are a team. We face whatever comes together." He squeezed her hand gently. "I know that scares you. I know you are used to relying only on yourself. But sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let someone else help carry the weight." Martha stared at him for a long moment, and Owen could almost see the internal battle playing out behind her eyes. Finally, she nodded slowly. "All right, together. But if things get bad, if it looks like they are going to catch me, I am going to fight you on this. I am going to try to make you stay safe. Fair enough. And I am going to fight back and refuse to listen." Owen smiled at her, and after a moment she smiled back, tentative and fragile but genuine. "You are the most stubborn man I have ever met," she said. "I prefer to think of it as determined." "That is what stubborn people always say." But she was still smiling, and when Owen leaned in slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, she did not move back. Their lips met in a soft, gentle kiss, a question and an answer all at once. It lasted only a few seconds before Martha pulled back, her cheeks flushed, her eyes bright. "I am terrible at this," she said breathlessly. "I have not exactly had much practice at the whole romance thing." "Neither have I," Owen admitted. "I guess we will just have to figure it out as we go." "Figure it out together," Martha said. And this time she leaned in first, kissing him again with more confidence, more certainty. Owen felt like his heart might burst from the sheer joy of it, the feeling of her lips on his, her hand still clasped in his, the sunset painting the world in gold behind them. They sat there on the corral fence until full dark, sometimes talking, sometimes just sitting in comfortable silence, soaking up the wonder of this new thing between them. Owen learned more about Martha's childhood before her parents died, about the small farm they had worked in Arizona Territory, about how her father had taught her to shoot and ride. Martha learned about Owen's family in Kansas, about his 3 younger siblings still on the farm, about his mother's cooking and his father's quiet strength. They talked about dreams and fears, about the future they hoped they might have together if the world allowed it. Martha confessed that she had always wanted a place of her own, a small ranch maybe, with good horses and a garden and a life built on something more solid than running and hiding. Owen talked about his dream of having land of his own someday, building something from the ground up, creating a legacy that would outlast him. "Maybe we could do it together," Owen said carefully. "Someday, when things are more settled, we could buy some land, start small, build it up over time." "That sounds impossible," Martha said, but there was longing in her voice. "That sounds like the kind of dream that does not come true for people like me." "Why not?" Owen challenged. "Why should not your dreams come true? You have worked for them, bled for them. You have earned the right to happiness just as much as anyone else." Martha did not answer, just squeezed his hand tighter and leaned her head on his shoulder. They watched the stars come out one by one, the vast canopy of the sky spreading overhead in all its glory. And for the first time in 3 years, Morgan Oliver allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, there could be a future that did not involve running. A future that included roots and stability and love. The weeks turned into months, and Martha became an indispensable part of the Johnson ranch. Her skills with horses earned her respect from even the most skeptical of the cowboys, and her steady, Reliable work in the kitchen won over Rebecca Johnson completely. No one questioned her presence anymore. She was just Martha, the widow from Texas, one of them. And through it all, her relationship with Owen deepened and grew. They were careful not to be too obvious about their feelings in front of the other ranch hands, stealing moments alone when they could. Late evening walks around the property, quiet conversations in the barn while tending the horses, brief touches of hands when no one was watching. It was a cautious courtship, shadowed always by the knowledge that discovery could mean death, but it was real and precious nonetheless. Owen learned the contours of Martha's personality like a map, discovering all the hidden places where hurt and hope lived side by side. He learned that she hummed while she worked when she thought no one could hear, old songs her mother had taught her. He learned that she had nightmares sometimes about her sister, waking in a cold sweat in her little cabin. He learned that her favorite time of day was dawn, when the world was fresh and new and full of possibility. Martha, in turn, learned Owen's steady kindness, his unshakable sense of right and wrong, his tendency to see the best in people even when they could not see it in themselves. She learned that he was afraid of thunderstorms, though he tried to hide it, that he could not carry a tune to save his life, but sang anyway when he was happy, that he thought of his family constantly, and wrote them letters every month without fail. They learned each other's bodies too, in stolen moments of passion that left them breathless and clinging to one another. In the barn loft on a warm October night, with hay scratching their skin and moonlight filtering through the cracks in the boards. In Martha's cabin after a late dinner when everyone else had gone to bed, making love with quiet urgency while the desert wind whispered outside. Learning what made each other gasp and sigh, learning the geography of each other's pleasure with eager, tender exploration. "I love you," Owen whispered one night as they lay tangled together in Martha's narrow bed, their bodies still slick with sweat, their breathing slowly returning to normal. "I love you so much it scares me sometimes." "I love you too," Martha replied, and it got easier every time she said it, the words that had seemed impossible a few months ago now flowing naturally. "I did not think I would ever say that to anyone, did not think I would ever feel this way, but you changed everything, Owen. You gave me hope when I had none left. You gave me purpose," Owen said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Before you, I was just drifting through life, not really sure where I was going or why, but now I know. I am here to love you, to build a life with you, to show you every day that you deserve all the good things in the world." They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, and when Martha woke from a nightmare in the small hours of the morning, Owen was there to hold her and remind her that she was safe, that the past could not hurt her anymore. But the past has a way of catching up with people, no matter how fast they run or how well they hide. It was a cold morning in late November when the stranger rode into the ranch. Owen was in the corral working with a young gelding when he saw the man approaching, and something about him immediately set off alarm bells. He rode a big roan stallion, wore dark clothing despite the dust of travel, and had the careful, watchful manner of someone who made their living by violence. Bounty hunter. Owen knew it in his gut before the man even opened his mouth. The stranger dismounted at the main house and knocked on the door. Johnson came out to greet him, and Owen moved closer, trying to hear their conversation without being obvious about it. "Name's Jack Reeves," the stranger said, his voice carrying across the yard. "I am tracking a fugitive outlaw by the name of Morgan Oliver, wanted for murder in Arizona territory. I have reason to believe this person might have passed through this area a few months back." Owen's blood turned to ice. He glanced around frantically, looking for Martha, and spotted her near the barn carrying a bucket of water. She had not seen the bounty hunter yet, was not aware of the danger walking toward her in the form of Jack Reeves and his questions. "Cannot say I have heard of any Morgan Oliver," Johnson said slowly. "But the name sounds familiar. Is not there a wanted poster in town?" "Several," Reeves confirmed. $500 reward for capture. Morgan Oliver killed a man named Vernon Hutchins in Silver City back in '75, been on the run ever since. Robbed a bank in Tucson, stole horses in Socorro, shot a fellow bounty hunter in— "Wait," Johnson interrupted. "You say this is Morgan Oliver? As in, a man named Morgan?" "As far as I know," Reeves said, pulling out a folded paper from his coat pocket. "Though I have been hearing some strange rumors lately. Some folks say Morgan Oliver might actually be a woman. The witness descriptions do not match up. Some say tall man with a beard. Others say medium height and clean-shaven. Got me thinking maybe the stories have gotten mixed up, or maybe Morgan Oliver is not what everyone assumes." He unfolded the paper, and even from a distance, Owen could see it was a wanted poster. Not the old ones with the crude sketches that looked nothing like anyone real, but a new one. And this one had a much more accurate drawing, possibly based on a description from someone who had actually seen Morgan recently. "I am going to show this around your ranch if you do not mind," Reeves said. "Talk to your hands, see if anyone recognizes this face or has seen a stranger matching this description in the past few months." "Feel free," Johnson said, though he did not sound happy about it. "But my people are honest. I doubt any of them have been harboring fugitives." Reeves nodded and began walking toward the barn, and Owen knew he had maybe 30 seconds before the bounty hunter saw Martha, before he started asking questions that would tear apart the fragile peace they had built here. He moved quickly, trying not to run and draw attention but covering ground fast. He reached Martha just as she set down her bucket and touched her elbow gently to get her attention. "We have a problem," he said quietly. "Bounty hunter just rode in, asking about Morgan Oliver." Martha went pale, her eyes going wide. "What? He has a new wanted poster, better picture, and he is walking around showing it to everyone." Owen glanced over his shoulder and saw Reeves talking to Pete by the barn entrance. "You need to disappear for a few hours, at least until I can figure out how much he knows." "If I disappear now, it will look suspicious," Martha said, but her voice was shaking. "If someone asks where I went and no one can explain it, then do not disappear, but keep your head down, stay away from him. I will try to lead him away from you." Owen squeezed her hand quickly, a brief contact that he hoped conveyed all the fear and love he was feeling. "We are going to get through this, I promise." He walked toward the barn, intercepting Reeves before the bounty hunter could move deeper into the ranch complex. "Can I help you with something, mister?" Owen asked, making his voice friendly and open. Reeves studied him with cold, professional eyes. "Maybe. I am looking for someone, a fugitive. Name of Morgan Oliver. You ever heard that name?" "Heard of the wanted posters in town," Owen said carefully. "Some kind of outlaw, right? But I have not seen anyone like that around here. Mr. Johnson runs a clean operation." "I am sure he does," Reeves said smoothly. "But sometimes people show up in places without the owner knowing their full history. Mind taking a look at this poster? Tell me if you have seen anyone matching the description." He held out the paper, and Owen forced himself to look at it calmly, not to react to what he saw. The drawing was indeed more accurate than the old posters, showing a person with Morgan's strong cheekbones and intense eyes, though the artist had hedged their bets by not making the figure obviously male or female. "Cannot say I recognize that face," Owen lied, handing the poster back. "Sorry I could not be more help. What about a woman working here? I heard from some folks in town that Johnson hired a widow a few months back. Woman from Texas who is good with horses. That unusual enough to be worth checking out. Owen kept his expression neutral through sheer force of will. Martha, she has been here since summer. Sweet lady, hard worker. Cannot imagine she is mixed up with any outlaws. Martha what? Reeves asked, his eyes sharpening with interest. Owen, Martha Owen. Like I said, she is a widow. Lost her husband to fever, been working her way north looking for employment. Where in Texas is she from? Did not ask, Owen said with a shrug. None of my business. She does her work, keeps to herself. That is all that matters on a ranch. Reeves considered this, clearly trying to decide whether to pursue this line of questioning. Would not hurt to talk to her, just to rule her out. Where can I find her? Probably in the kitchen helping with dinner prep. But Mr. Johnson likes his privacy and his routine. You start bothering the staff, disrupting the work, he will not be happy about it. Owen was grasping at straws now, trying to buy time, trying to figure out some way to protect Martha from this confrontation. I will be respectful, Reeves said, but I have my job to do, same as you have yours. Now, if you will excuse me. He moved past Owen toward the main house, and Owen felt panic rising in his throat. He followed, his mind racing through options and finding them all wanting. He could not attack a bounty hunter. That would only confirm suspicions and make things worse. He could not warn Martha now without being seen. He could only watch and hope that Martha's months of practice at being someone else would be enough to fool Jack Reeves. They found Martha in the kitchen as expected, working with Rosa to prepare the evening meal. She looked up when Reeves entered, and Owen saw her face go carefully blank, showing nothing but polite curiosity. Can I help you? Martha asked, wiping her hands on her apron. Maybe, Reeves said, studying her intently. I am looking for someone, an outlaw named Morgan Oliver. You heard that name before. I have seen the wanted posters in town, Martha said calmly, but I do not know anyone by that name. I keep to myself mostly, just work and rest, not much time for meeting people. You are Martha Owen, the widow from Texas. That is right. Is there a problem? Reeves walked closer, and Owen saw him taking in every detail of Martha's appearance. She stood there with her chin up, meeting his gaze steadily, not flinching or looking away. If she was terrified, and Owen knew she must be, she hit it perfectly. Where in Texas are you from? Reeves asked. Little town near San Antonio. Doubt you would have heard of it. Most people have not. What was your husband's name? Jacob Owen. He died of yellow fever 6 months back. Martha's voice was steady, telling the lie with perfect conviction. She had practiced this story so many times it probably felt like truth by now. You got any proof of that? Marriage certificate, death notice. Lost everything in a fire before I left Texas, Martha said, which was a smart addition, explaining away the lack of documentation. Is there some reason you are asking me all this? Just being thorough. Reeves pulled out the wanted poster and unfolded it slowly, his eyes never leaving Martha's face, watching for any reaction. Take a look at this. You ever seen anyone who looks like this picture? Martha looked at the poster with what appeared to be genuine interest, as if she was really trying to be helpful. Cannot say I have. The face is not very detailed, though. Could be a lot of people. Could be, Reeves agreed. Or could be one specific person with something to hide. The threat in his words was unmistakable. Martha straightened her shoulders and looked him directly in the eye. Mister, I do not know what you are implying, but I am an honest woman trying to make an honest living. I saved up enough money to get north and found work here at this ranch. That is the whole story. If you are accusing me of being some outlaw, you had better have proof more solid than a vague drawing on a wanted poster. Her boldness seemed to surprise Reeves. He studied her for another long moment, then folded up the poster and put it away. "Just doing my job, madam." "No offense intended, but I will be staying in Deeming for a few days, asking around, seeing what I can find. If Morgan Oliver is in this area, I will find them." "I hope you do," Martha said. "Outlaws should answer for their crimes. Now if you will excuse me, I have dinner to prepare." She turned back to her work, dismissing him with the perfect combination of politeness and firmness. Reeves stood there for a moment longer, clearly not entirely satisfied but lacking any concrete reason to press further. Finally, he nodded to Owen and left the kitchen. Owen waited until he heard the front door close, heard the sound of Reeves mounting his horse and riding away. Only then did he move to Martha's side. She was gripping the edge of the counter so hard her knuckles were white, her whole body trembling with suppressed fear. "You were amazing," Owen said quietly. "He believed you." "He believed me today," Martha said, her voice shaking. "But he is not done. He is going to keep digging, keep asking questions, and sooner or later someone is going to say something that makes him suspicious. Maybe one of the ranch hands will mention that I am too good with a gun for a widow from Texas. Maybe someone in town will remember seeing me ride in that first day with you and think it looks suspicious. Maybe he will just decide his gut is telling him I am lying and he will come back with the sheriff." "We will deal with it," Owen said, though he felt the weight of fear settling in his own chest. "We have come this far. We can make it through this too." Martha shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "No, Owen, this is what I was afraid of. This is why I should never have stayed, never have let myself believe I could have a normal life. I have put you in danger, put everyone on this ranch in danger. The best thing I can do now is leave before Reeves figures out the truth." "You are not leaving," Owen said firmly. "We are going to figure this out together, remember? That was the deal. The deal was stupid. I was stupid for agreeing to it." Martha wiped at her tears angrily. "I have been living in a dream world, pretending I could be Martha Owen forever, but I cannot. I will always be Morgan Oliver, the outlaw, the murderer. That is who I am, and I cannot run from it." "That is not who you are," Owen insisted. "That is what you were forced to become by circumstances beyond your control. But here, now, you are Martha. You are the woman I love, and I am not letting you throw that away because one bounty hunter showed up asking questions. Owen, no. Listen to me." He took her hands, holding them gently but firmly. "I know you are scared. I am scared too. But running now would actually make things worse. It would confirm Reeves' suspicions. But if you stay, if we just keep living our lives like nothing is wrong, eventually he will move on. There are dozens of outlaws in New Mexico territory. He cannot waste all his time chasing a hunch about a widow who does not fit any real description of Morgan Oliver, except for being able to shoot straight." Martha looked at him with desperate hope warring with fear in her eyes. "You really think we can wait him out?" "I really do. And even if I am wrong, even if things go badly, I would rather spend whatever time we have together than watch you ride away and wonder for the rest of my life what might have been." She was quiet for a long moment, considering his words. Then slowly she nodded. "All right, I will stay for now. But if Reeves gets too close, if he starts to figure it out, I am leaving and you are not stopping me. I will not let you hang for my crimes, Owen. I love you too much for that." "Fair enough," Owen agreed, though he knew if it came to that he would follow her anyway. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight, feeling her heart racing against his chest. "It will be all right. I promise it will be all right." But even as he said the words, Owen wondered if he could keep that promise. Jack Reeves was clearly good at his job, persistent and thorough. And the more he looked into Martha Owen, the more inconsistencies he might find, the more suspicious he might become. The next few days were tense. Reeves was indeed staying in Deeming, and word filtered back to the ranch that he was asking questions all over town. Who had seen Morgan Oliver? Who had noticed any strangers arriving around the time the outlaw would have been in the area? Were there any newcomers to the region who seemed to be hiding something? Martha went about her work with calm determination, not changing her routine, not showing any sign of nervousness where others could see. But Owen noticed the way she constantly scanned the horizon, the way she kept her gun close even when working in the kitchen, the way she flinched at unexpected sounds. He tried to be near her as much as possible without making it obvious, tried to offer silent support and reassurance. They could not risk being seen together too often or too intimately, not now when suspicion hung in the air like smoke. So they made do with brief touches in passing, with meaningful looks across the dinner table, with whispered conversations late at night when they could steal a few moments alone. "I keep thinking about running," Martha confessed one night as they sat in the barn, ostensibly checking on a mare that was due to foal soon. "Every instinct I have is telling me to get my horse and go, to put as many miles between me and Reeves as possible." "But you have not," Owen observed. "No, because you asked me not to, because I trust you." She looked at him in the dim light of the lantern hanging from a beam. "That is a new feeling for me, trusting someone else's judgment over my own survival instincts. I am not sure if it is brave or stupid." "Maybe both," Owen said with a small smile. "Most brave things are a little stupid when you think about them too much." She laughed quietly, a sound that warmed Owen's heart. "You have a way of making terrible situations seem less terrible. It is a gift." He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering on her cheek. "We are going to get through this, Martha. I believe that with everything I have." She leaned into his touch, closing her eyes. "I want to believe it too. I want to believe we can have a future, that we do not have to spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders." She opened her eyes again, and Owen saw the depth of emotion there. "I want to marry you, Owen. I want to wake up next to you every morning and go to sleep in your arms every night. I want to build that ranch we talked about and raise horses and maybe have children someday. I want all of it." "Then let us have it," Owen said, his heart soaring at her words. "As soon as Reeves leaves town, as soon as things calm down, we will do it. I will talk to Mr. Johnson, get his blessing. We will get married in the church in Deeming and make it official." "A wanted outlaw getting married in a church," Martha said with bitter amusement. "That is almost funny." "Martha Owen getting married in a church," Owen corrected. "That is who you are now. That is who you get to be." She smiled at him, fragile and hopeful, and leaned in to kiss him softly. "I love you. Even if this all falls apart, even if I end up on the gallows tomorrow, I want you to know that these months with you have been the best of my life. You gave me something I never thought I would have. You gave me hope. You gave me the same thing," Owen said against her lips. "You gave me purpose and love and a reason to believe in something bigger than just getting through each day. Whatever happens, we face it together. That is my promise to you." They held each other in the warm darkness of the barn, listening to the soft sounds of horses shifting in their stalls, breathing in the smell of hay and leather in each other. And for that moment, at least, the danger seemed far away and the future seemed bright with possibility. But the next morning brought news that shattered their fragile peace. Pete came running to the barn where Owen was working, his old face creased with worry. "Brennan, you need to come quick. That bounty hunter is back and he has got the sheriff with him. They are in the house talking to Mr. Johnson and it does not look good." Owen's stomach dropped. "What are they saying?" "Could not hear much, but I caught something about evidence and bringing someone in for questioning. Think they might be talking about Martha." Owen did not wait to hear more. He ran toward the main house, his mind racing. If they were coming for Martha, if they had enough evidence to arrest her, then there was no more time for waiting, no more time for hoping this would blow over. They would have to run, and they would have to do it now. He found Martha coming out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron, clearly having heard the commotion. Her face was calm, but Owen could see the fear in her eyes. "They are coming for me," she said quietly. "Reeves must have found something." "We can still run," Owen said urgently. "Go get your horse, I will get mine, we can be gone before they even realize—" "No," Martha interrupted. "If we run now, it confirms everything, and they will come after both of us. You will be wanted too, Owen." "I will not do that to you. I do not care about that. I care about you, I know, but I care about you too, which is why I am going to face this." She reached up and touched his face gently, memorizing the feel of him. "If Reeves has real evidence, if he can prove I am Morgan Oliver, then running will only make things worse. Better to face it now, on my terms, than spend the rest of our lives running. Martha, they will hang you." Owen felt tears burning in his eyes. "Please do not do this. Come with me. We can go to Mexico, start over, disappear where no one will ever find us, and spend every day wondering if today is the day someone recognizes me. Spend every night jumping at shadows. That is not a life, Owen. That is just a slower way of dying." She stood on her toes and kissed him, soft and sweet and full of love. "I need you to trust me now. Trust that I know what I am doing." The front door of the main house opened and Jack Reeves stepped out, followed by the sheriff, a heavy-set man named Bill Tucker whom Owen recognized from occasional trips to town. Thomas Johnson came out behind them, his face troubled. "Martha, Owen," Reeves called out. "I need you to come here, please." Martha took a deep breath, squeezed Owen's hand once and walked toward them with her head high. Owen followed a few steps behind, ready to intervene if they tried to hurt her. "What is this about?" Martha asked, her voice steady. "I have been doing some checking," Reeves said. "Talked to some folks in San Antonio, sent some telegrams. Funny thing, nobody there remembers a Jacob and Martha Owen. No record of a death from yellow fever matching what you described. No record of a fire destroying anyone's documents. It is almost like Jacob and Martha Owen never existed." "Texas is a big place," Martha said. "You could not have checked everywhere." "You are right, I could not, but I checked enough. And when you add that to how good you are with a gun, how you ride like someone who has spent more time running than settling, how you match certain descriptions I have of Morgan Oliver." Reeves let the implication hang in the air. "I think you are Morgan Oliver. And I think you have been hiding here on this ranch for months, lying to these good people about who you really are." "That is ridiculous," Martha said, but Owen heard the slight tremor in her voice. "I am not some outlaw. I am just a widow trying to make a living." "Then you will not mind coming into town with me and the sheriff," Reeves said smoothly. "We can get this all sorted out, check your story more thoroughly. If you are really Martha Owen like you claim, you have got nothing to worry about. And if I refuse, then I will have to arrest you on suspicion of being a wanted fugitive, and it will look a lot worse for you than if you come voluntarily." Reeves moved his coat aside slightly, showing the gun on his hip, a threat that needed no words. Martha was quiet for a long moment, clearly weighing her options. Owen could see her mind working, calculating odds, looking for a way out. Finally, she nodded slowly. "All right, I will come with you, but I want Owen to come too, as a witness to make sure everything is done properly." "Fine with me," Sheriff Tucker said. He seemed uncomfortable with the whole situation, probably not thrilled about arresting a woman who had been a model citizen for months based on a bounty hunter's suspicions. They saddled horses and rode into Deeming, the four of them making a strange procession down the dusty main street. People stopped to stare as they passed, sensing drama, drawn to the spectacle of the law in action. Owen rode close to Martha, trying to offer silent support even though he felt helpless and angry and terrified all at once. At the sheriff's office, they dismounted and went inside. The office was small and spare, with a desk piled high with papers, a gun rack on the wall, and 2 cells in the back with iron bar doors. Tucker gestured for Martha to sit in the chair opposite his desk while Reeves leaned against the wall, watching her like a hawk. "All right," Tucker said, pulling out a notepad. "Let us go through this nice and slow. You say your name is Martha Owen, widow from Texas. Tell me everything about your life before you came to New Mexico. Where you were born, where you grew up, when you got married, how your husband died, why you came here. Everything." Martha began to talk, spinning out the story she had created, adding details that Owen had never heard before, making it rich and believable. She talked about a childhood in a small town, about meeting Jacob at a church social, about their brief marriage cut short by tragedy. She talked about the fire that destroyed their home and all their possessions, about the decision to move north looking for work. She told it with conviction, with emotion, with the kind of specific details that make a story feel real. But Reeves kept interrupting, asking questions designed to catch her in a lie or contradiction. What was the name of the church where she got married? What was the pastor's name? What street did she live on in San Antonio? What was her mother's maiden name? On and on, drilling down into specifics that Martha could not possibly have answers for because the life she was describing had never existed. Owen watched her starting to falter, starting to run out of quick answers. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the cool temperature in the office. Her hands, resting on her lap, had clenched into fists. "Here is what I think," Reeves said after nearly an hour of questioning. "I think you are Morgan Oliver. I think you killed Vernon Hutchins in Silver City in '75. I think you have been running ever since, picking up new crimes along the way. And I think you came to the Johnson Ranch hoping to hide out until the heat died down. Am I close?" Martha was silent, her jaw clenched tight. "You know," Reeves continued, "there is a way out of this for you. Morgan Oliver is wanted for murder, yes. But there are circumstances around that killing that might matter to a judge. If Vernon Hutchins really did beat your sister to death like the story goes, if you were acting out of grief and rage rather than cold calculation, a good lawyer might be able to argue for mercy. You might get prison time instead of hanging. You might even get out someday and have a chance at a real life. Are you offering me a deal?" Martha asked quietly. "I am offering you a chance to tell the truth, to stop running and face what you have done with some measure of dignity." Reeves moved closer, his voice taking on an almost kind tone. "I have been hunting outlaws for 10 years. I have seen a lot of bad people, people who kill for pleasure or profit, people without conscience or remorse. But I have also seen good people who made terrible choices because they did not see any other way out. I think you might be one of those. So I am giving you this chance. Admit who you are, come clean about what you have done, and maybe, just maybe, you can find some kind of redemption." Martha looked at Owen, her eyes full of pain and apology and love. He knew what she was thinking, knew she was weighing the cost of continuing to lie against the cost of telling the truth. He wanted to tell her to keep lying, to hold out, to never give them the satisfaction. But he also knew Reeves was right about one thing: the truth might be her only path to any kind of future that did not end on the gallows. "Do it," Owen said quietly. "Tell them the truth." Martha's eyes widened with surprise. "Owen, tell them about Vernon Hutchins. Tell them about Mary. Tell them why you did what you did. Make them understand that you are not a monster. You are a woman who was pushed beyond endurance and fought back the only way you knew how." Owen moved to her side, taking her hand in his. I am not leaving you. Whatever happens, I am right here. Martha looked at him for a long moment, tears streaming down her face. Then she nodded and turned back to Reeves and Tucker. My name is Morgan Oliver, she said, her voice breaking. And I killed Vernon Hutchins because he murdered my sister. She told them everything then, the whole story pouring out of her like water from a broken dam. She told them about her parents dying, about ending up in the brothel, about Mary's suffering and death. She told them about shooting Hutchins, about the years of running, about every crime she had committed along the way and why. She left nothing out, not even the parts that made her look bad, the times she had stolen or threatened or hurt people to survive. By the time she finished, even Reeves looked shaken. Sheriff Tucker was writing furiously, trying to capture it all on paper. Owen was crying openly, his hand still holding Martha's, proud of her courage even as his heart broke for everything she had endured. That is some story, Tucker said finally, setting down his pen. And if even half of it is true, Vernon Hutchins got what he deserved. But murder is murder, Reeves added, and the law says you have got to answer for it. I know, Martha said. I have always known. I am ready to face that now. Tucker sighed heavily. I am going to have to hold you for trial. Cannot just let you walk even with a sympathetic story, but I will make sure you are treated fairly. And I will personally write to the judge, explain the circumstances, recommend leniency. Thank you, Martha said quietly. Owen, Tucker said, turning to him. Did you know who she was when you brought her to the ranch? Owen thought about lying, about protecting himself, but he could not do it. Martha had been honest, had shown courage and integrity. He would do the same. Yes, I knew from the beginning. Then technically you are guilty of harboring a fugitive. I should arrest you too. Then do it, Owen said steadily. I would make the same choice again. She saved my life. I was not going to turn her over to hang for defending her sister. Tucker looked at him for a long moment, then shook his head. You are either very brave or very stupid, son. But I do not see any point in arresting you. You made a choice based on loyalty and love, and while it was not the smartest choice legally, I can understand it. Just do not make a habit of helping wanted criminals, all right? No, sir, I will not. Tucker stood and pulled out a ring of keys. Come on, Miss Oliver. Let us get you settled in a cell. You will be here until we can arrange a trial, probably a few weeks. Martha stood, her hand slipping from Owen's. She looked at him with such love and sadness that it took his breath away. Thank you, she said softly, for everything, for giving me a chance at happiness even if it was brief. It is not over, Owen insisted. The trial, maybe you will be acquitted, or maybe the sentence will not be that bad. Maybe, Martha agreed, but she did not sound convinced. She turned and walked toward the cells with Tucker, her back straight and her head high, every inch of her radiating dignity even in defeat. Owen watched as Tucker locked her in the cell, watched as she sat down on the narrow bunk and stared at the barred window set high in the wall. His heart felt like it was being torn in two. Reeves collected his reward voucher from Tucker and left without another word. Owen stayed, unable to bring himself to leave Martha alone in that cell. Tucker seemed to understand and did not ask him to go. I will get you a lawyer, Owen said through the bars. The best one I can find. We will make them understand what happened, why you did what you did. You do not have money for a fancy lawyer, Martha said. Do not waste what little you have on a lost cause. You are not a lost cause, and I will find the money somehow. I will sell everything I own if I have to. Martha smiled at him, sad and tender. You really mean that, do not you? You really would give up everything for me. I love you. What else would I do? She came to the bars and reached through, touching his face. I love you too, and that is why I need you to promise me something. If this goes badly, if they sentence me to hang, I need you to move on. Do not spend the rest of your life mourning me. Find someone else, build that ranch you want, have children and grandchildren and a long, happy life." "I cannot promise that," Owen said hoarsely. "I cannot promise to stop loving you or to forget you. I am not asking you to forget me. I am asking you to live. Really live, not just exist. Promise me, Owen, please." He wanted to refuse, wanted to tell her that he would never move on, that he would love her until his dying day and no one else. But looking into her eyes, seeing the desperate need there for him to be all right even if she was not, he could not deny her this one thing. "I promise," he whispered, "but I am still going to fight for you with everything I have. I am not giving up." "I know you are not," Martha said softly. "That is one of the things I love most about you." They stood there for a long time, hands clasped through the bars, neither wanting to let go. Finally, Tucker cleared his throat gently. "Son, it is getting late. You should head back to the ranch, get some rest. You can come visit again tomorrow." Owen nodded reluctantly and pressed a kiss to Martha's palm. "I will be back first thing in the morning, I promise." "I will be here," Martha said with a ghost of a smile. "Not like I am going anywhere." Owen left the sheriff's office as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of red that looked like blood. He felt numb, hollowed out, like someone had reached into his chest and removed something vital. The woman he loved was in jail facing a murder charge, and there was nothing he could do except watch and hope and pray for a miracle. Over the next few weeks, Owen did everything in his power to help Martha's case. He found a lawyer in Deeming, a man named Charles Whitmore, who had a reputation for taking on difficult cases. Whitmore agreed to represent Martha after hearing the full story, moved by the injustice of what had happened to her and her sister. Owen also tracked down witnesses who could testify about Vernon Hutchins's character, about his known violence toward women, about the culture of brutality that allowed him to get away with murdering a prostitute. He found the doctor who had treated Mary before she died, who confirmed that her injuries were consistent with a severe beating. He even found 2 other women who had worked at Mother Catherine's brothel, who testified that Hutchins had hurt them too, though never badly enough that they dared to report it. Thomas Johnson, to Owen's surprise and gratitude, came to testify as a character witness for Martha. He spoke about her work on the ranch, about her honesty and reliability, about how she had become a valued member of their community in the months she had been there. Rebecca Johnson came too, tearfully explaining how Martha had become like a daughter to her, how it broke her heart to see this good woman facing such harsh judgment for defending her sister. The trial took place in late January of 1879, in the courthouse in Deeming before Judge Albert Carson, a stern man known for being fair but uncompromising when it came to the law. The courtroom was packed with spectators, some sympathetic to Martha, others who saw her only as a murderer who deserved to hang. Owen sat in the front row every day, where Martha could see him, trying to give her strength through his presence. She looked smaller in the courtroom, dressed in a simple gray dress that Rebecca Johnson had brought her, her hands folded calmly in her lap. But when she looked at Owen, he saw the fear underneath the calm exterior, the knowledge that her life hung in the balance. The prosecutor, a sharp-faced man named Reynolds, painted Martha as a cold-blooded killer who had shot an unarmed man in public, and then fled rather than face justice. He argued that whatever Vernon Hutchins had or had not done, vigilante justice was not acceptable in a civilized society. If people were allowed to kill anyone they believed had wronged them, he argued, society would descend into chaos. Charles Whitmore, in his defense, painted a different picture. He talked about 2 orphan girls with no one to protect them, forced into the worst kind of work just to survive. He talked about Vernon Hutchins as a predator who used his wealth and power to hurt vulnerable women, knowing he would never face consequences because the law did not care about people like Mary Oliver. He talked about a grief-stricken sister who saw the man who murdered her only family walking free and made a choice in a moment of unbearable pain. "Morgan Oliver is not a monster," Whitmore said in his closing argument. "She is a young woman who has been failed by every system that should have protected her. Failed by society when her parents died and no one stepped in to help. Failed by the law when Vernon Hutchins walked free after killing her sister. Failed by a world that sees women like her as disposable. Yes, she killed a man. Yes, she ran rather than face trial. But I ask you to consider what you would have done in her place. If someone murdered your sister, your daughter, your wife, and the law did nothing, would you simply accept that? Or would you fight back the only way you could?" The jury deliberated for 2 days. Owen barely slept during that time, pacing his room at the boarding house, praying to a God he was not sure he believed in, bargaining with the universe for Martha's life. On the afternoon of the second day, word came that the jury had reached a verdict. The courtroom was tense as everyone filed back in. Martha sat at the defense table, her face pale but composed. Owen wanted to go to her to hold her hand, but he could only watch from his seat as the foreman of the jury stood to deliver the verdict. "In the matter of the territory of New Mexico versus Morgan Oliver," the foreman said, his voice carrying through the silent room, "on the charge of murder in the first degree, we the jury find the defendant." He paused and Owen felt his heart stop. "Guilty of the lesser charge of voluntary manslaughter." Owen's breath rushed out in a gasp of relief. Not murder. Manslaughter. That meant they had believed her story, had accepted that she had acted in the heat of passion rather than with premeditated intent. That meant she might not hang. Judge Carson banged his gavel to quiet the murmuring crowd. "The defendant will rise for sentencing." Martha stood, Whitmore beside her, and faced the judge with her chin up. "Morgan Oliver," Carson said, his voice grave, "you have been found guilty of voluntary manslaughter in the death of Vernon Hutchins. While this court acknowledges the difficult circumstances that led to your actions, the law is clear that taking a life, even in response to a perceived injustice, cannot be condoned. However, in light of your age at the time of the crime, the provocation you suffered, and the lack of any prior criminal history before this incident, I am inclined toward leniency." He paused, and Owen held his breath again. "I hereby sentence you to 5 years imprisonment at the Territorial Prison in Santa Fe. However, I am suspending the final 2 years of that sentence. If you serve 3 years with good behavior, you will be released on parole and allowed to return to society. Furthermore, the additional charges of bank robbery, horse theft, and assault on a bounty hunter are being dropped, as this court finds they were committed in the course of your flight from what you reasonably believe to be an unjust murder charge." 3 years, Owen breathed. 3 years was a long time, an eternity when the woman you loved was locked away. But it was not forever. It was not the death sentence he had feared. 3 years and then Martha could be free, could come back to him, could have the life they had dreamed about. Martha turned and looked at him, and Owen saw tears streaming down her face. But she was smiling too, a real smile of relief and hope and love. He smiled back, his own eyes wet, and mouthed the words, "I love you." She mouthed back, "I love you too," just before the bailiff led her away. Those 3 years were the longest of Owen's life. He wrote to Martha every week, long letters about his work at the ranch, about the changing seasons, about his dreams for their future. He told her about the land he was saving to buy, A nice piece of property just north of Deeming with good water and pasture land perfect for horses. He told her about the house he planned to build there, described it in detail so she could picture it. He told her he loved her 1,000 different ways, trying to keep her spirits up through the difficult years of her imprisonment. Martha wrote back when she could, shorter letters on rough paper, but full of love and determination. She told him about the work she did in the prison, helping in the kitchen and caring for sick inmates. She told him about the other women there, their stories and struggles, how she had found a kind of community even in that harsh place. She told him to be patient, to stay strong, that she was counting the days until she could be with him again. Owen visited when he could afford the trip to Santa Fe, though it was not often. Each visit was precious, an hour or two sitting across from Martha in the visiting room, holding her hand and talking about everything and nothing. He brought her books and small treats, anything to make her time easier. And he always left with the promise that he would be there waiting when she was released. Thomas Johnson, having heard the full story and been moved by Martha's courage, kept Owen on at the ranch and even gave him a raise, understanding that he was saving for a future with the woman he loved. The other ranch hands, most of whom had grown to care for Martha during her time there, treated Owen with a kind of gentle respect, understanding his devotion even if they thought him foolish for waiting so long for a woman with a criminal past. Finally, in March of 1882, the day came. Martha had served her 3 years with exemplary behavior and was being released on parole. Owen made the trip to Santa Fe with his heart pounding, barely able to contain his excitement and nervousness. He waited outside the prison gates as the sun rose, watching as the massive doors slowly opened. And then she was there, walking out into the morning light, dressed in a simple blue dress that someone at the prison had given her. She looked older, thin from prison food and hard work, with new lines around her eyes. But when she saw Owen standing there, her face lit up with a joy so pure and radiant that she looked young again, looked like the woman he had fallen in love with in the desert 4 years ago. They ran to each other and Owen swept her up in his arms, holding her so tight he was afraid he might hurt her but unable to let go. Martha was crying and laughing at the same time, her arms around his neck, her face buried in his shoulder. "I am here," she sobbed. "I am really here. I am free." "You are free," Owen confirmed, his own voice choked with tears. "And I am never letting you go again." They held each other for a long time there on the dusty street outside the prison, not caring who saw or what anyone thought. They had waited 3 years for this moment, and they were going to savor every second of it. Finally, Martha pulled back enough to look at Owen's face, reaching up to touch him as if making sure he was real. "You really waited for me. I thought maybe, after all this time, you would have moved on. Found someone else." "I made you a promise," Owen said. "I promised to fight for you, to wait for you. Did you really think I would break that promise? I hoped you would not, but I would not have blamed you if you did." She smiled at him, her eyes still wet. 3 years is a long time to wait for someone. It could have been 30 years and I still would have waited. Owen kissed her softly, tasting salt from her tears, feeling the warmth of her lips against his. "I love you, Morgan Oliver. I have loved you since that day in the desert when you saved my life, and I will love you until the day I die." "My name is Martha now," she said quietly. "Morgan Oliver is gone. The law says I paid for her crimes. From now on, I am just Martha Owen, free woman, trying to build a life with the man she loves." "Martha Owen," Owen repeated, liking the sound of it. "That is a good name. A good life." He took her hand and led her to where his horse and a second mount he had borrowed for her were waiting. "Ready to go home?" "Where is home?" Martha asked. "I will show you." Owen helped her mount and then swung up onto his own horse. They rode out of Santa Fe side by side, heading south toward Deeming, toward the life they had dreamed about for 3 long years. The ride took 2 days, and they spent every moment talking, catching up on everything letters could not convey. Owen told Martha about the land he had bought, about the small house he had started building with help from the ranch hands at Johnson's place. Martha told him about the things she had learned in prison, about the women she had befriended, about how the experience had changed her, made her stronger in some ways and more vulnerable in others. "I used to think I had to be hard all the time, never show weakness, never let anyone in," she said as they rode across the familiar desert landscape. "But prison taught me that is not strength. Real strength is being vulnerable, letting people see your pain and trusting them not to use it against you. That is what you did for me, Owen. You saw all my pain and you loved me anyway." "I did not love you anyway," Owen corrected gently. "I loved you because of it. Your pain, your strength, your courage, your capacity for love despite everything you have been through. All of that is what makes you the woman I fell in love with." When they finally arrived at the property Owen had bought, Martha gasped with delight. It was everything he had described in his letters and more. A small adobe house with a covered porch, still rough around the edges but sturdy and well built. A barn big enough for 12 horses. Corrals and pasture land stretching out toward the distant mountains. A creek running through the property, ensuring good water year-round. "It is perfect," Martha breathed. "Owen, it is absolutely perfect." "It is ours," Owen said, dismounting and helping her down. "I had the deed drawn up with both our names on it. Martha and Owen Brennan, joint owners." Martha looked at him with confusion. "Brennan? But I am Martha Owen." "Not for long." Owen reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a small box. He opened it to reveal a simple gold ring, nothing fancy but beautiful in its simplicity. "I bought this 2 years ago, been carrying it with me ever since, waiting for the right moment. And I figure there is no better moment than now." He got down on one knee right there in the dirt of their new property. "Martha Owen, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Will you marry me and build this life with me and let me love you for the rest of our days?" Martha covered her mouth with her hands, tears streaming down her face again. She nodded, unable to speak for a moment, then finally managed to choke out, "Yes. Yes, of course yes. I will marry you, Owen Brennan. I will love you and build this life with you and be grateful every single day that you found me in that desert." Owen slipped the ring onto her finger and stood up, pulling her into his arms and kissing her deeply. She kissed him back with equal passion, pouring 3 years of longing and love into that kiss, making up for lost time. They were married 2 weeks later in the church in Deeming, with Thomas and Rebecca Johnson standing as witnesses. It was a small ceremony, just a few close friends, but it was perfect. Martha wore a simple white dress that Rebecca had helped her sew, and Owen wore his best suit, looking nervous and happy and so in love that several women in attendance openly cried at the sight of him. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, when Owen kissed his bride for the first time as her husband, the small congregation broke into applause. And standing there with Martha in his arms, Owen felt like the luckiest man in the world. They spent their wedding night in the house Owen had built. In the bedroom he had prepared with a real bed and clean sheets and wildflowers in a vase by the window. They made love slowly, tenderly, relearning each other's bodies after 3 years apart, whispering promises and declarations of love between kisses and caresses. "I love you," Martha said as they lay tangled together afterward, her head on Owen's chest, his arms around her. "I love you so much. Thank you for believing in me when I could not believe in myself. Thank you for waiting for me. Thank you for giving me a future when I thought I had none." "Thank you for saving my life that day in the desert," Owen replied, pressing a kiss to her hair. "In more ways than one. You saved my life and then you gave it meaning. Everything good I have, everything I am, is because you came into my life." They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other's arms, safe and home at last. The years that followed were good ones, filled with the kind of quiet happiness that comes from hard work and deep love. Owen and Martha built their horse ranch together, starting small and growing gradually. Martha's gift for training horses became legendary in the area, and people came from miles around to buy horses she had gentled and trained. They faced challenges, of course. There were hard winters and dry summers. There were horses that got sick and foals that did not survive. There were bills that came due when money was tight. But they faced everything together, drawing strength from each other, never giving up no matter how difficult things got. In the spring of 1883, Martha discovered she was pregnant. She was terrified at first, afraid that her past, the hard years of running and prison, had damaged her somehow, made her unfit to be a mother. But Owen held her and reminded her that she had more love to give than anyone he knew, that she would be an amazing mother. Their son was born in December of that year, a healthy baby boy with his mother's gray-green eyes and his father's steady temperament. They named him Jacob, after the fictional husband Martha had invented all those years ago, reclaiming that name and making it real and meaningful. 2 years later, their daughter arrived, a fierce little girl they named Mary after Martha's sister. Martha cried when she held her daughter for the first time, thinking about the Mary who never got to grow up, who never got to have children of her own. But these were healing tears, tears of remembrance and love, and hope that this new Mary would have all the opportunities the first one had been denied. The children grew up strong and happy, running wild on the ranch, learning to ride almost before they could walk, helping with the horses and chores as soon as they were old enough. They knew that their mother had come from a difficult past, though Martha and Owen waited until they were older to tell them the full story. When they finally did, both children simply hugged their mother and told her they loved her and that they were proud of her courage. Thomas Johnson became like a grandfather to the children, visiting often and telling them stories about the old days. Rebecca taught Martha more about cooking and sewing, treating her like the daughter she had never had. The ranch hands from Johnson's place, including old Pete, who had been the first to see Owen falling in love with Martha all those years ago, became beloved uncles who spoiled the children shamelessly. Jack Reeves, the bounty hunter who had tracked Martha down, showed up at the ranch unexpectedly one summer day in 1887. Martha tensed when she saw him, old instincts kicking in, ready to fight or flee. But Reeves held up his hands in a gesture of peace. "I am not here to cause trouble," he said. "I just wanted to see how you were doing. I heard you had served your time, that you were making a good life for yourself. Wanted to see if it was true." "It is true," Martha said warily. "I paid my debt to society. I am a free woman now." "I can see that." Reeves looked around at the thriving ranch, at the children playing in the yard, at Owen coming out of the barn to stand protectively beside his wife. "You built something real here, something good. I am glad. Not every outlaw I hunted deserved the punishment they got. I always thought you were one of the ones who might have turned out different if life had been kinder to you." "Life got kinder," Martha said quietly. "Eventually." Reeves nodded and tipped his hat to her. "Well, I will let you get back to your life. Just wanted you to know I am glad things worked out. Not often I get to see a happy ending in my line of work." He rode away and they never saw him again, but his visit brought a kind of closure, a final acknowledgement that Martha's past was truly behind her, The years continued to pass, marked by the changing seasons and the milestones of their children's lives. Jacob grew into a thoughtful young man with a talent for working with the wildest horses, patient and gentle like his mother. Mary became a force of nature, strong-willed and passionate, fighting for justice wherever she saw unfairness, channeling her mother's fierce protective instincts into making the world better. In 1895, Jacob married a sweet girl from town named Sarah, and they gave Owen and Martha their first grandchild, a little boy they named Owen after his grandfather. Martha cried happy tears when she held her grandson for the first time, overwhelmed by the realization that she had not just survived, had not just built a good life, but had created a family, a legacy that would continue long after she was gone. Mary married a few years later, choosing a lawyer from Santa Fe who shared her passion for justice and reform. They had 3 children together, and Mary spent much of her life working to improve conditions for women and children in difficult circumstances, making sure that no one else had to suffer the way her mother and aunt had suffered. Owen and Martha grew old together on their ranch, their hair turning gray, their bodies slowing down, but their love never diminishing. They still held hands when they walked around the property in the evenings. They still kissed each other good morning and good night every single day. They still looked at each other with the same wonder and gratitude. They had felt that first day in the desert when their lives had collided and changed forever. On a warm spring evening in 1905, they sat together on the porch of the house Owen had built all those years ago, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and red. They were both in their 60s now, their children grown with families of their own, their grandchildren running around the yard playing some elaborate game. "You ever regret it?" Owen asked quietly. "Giving up running, settling down here, building this life with me instead of staying free and alone?" Martha looked at him with surprise and then laughed, a rich, warm sound. "Are you insane? Why would I regret the best decision I ever made? I just want to make sure. I want to know that you are happy, that you got the life you wanted." "Owen Brennan," Martha said, taking his hand in hers, their fingers interlacing with the ease of decades of practice. "I got a life better than anything I ever dared to want. I got love and family and purpose. I got to watch my children grow up strong and good. I got to build something lasting with my own 2 hands. And I got to spend every day for the past 23 years with the man who saved me in more ways than I can count." She leaned in and kissed him softly. "No, my love. I do not regret a single thing." "Good," Owen said, smiling at her with all the love in his heart. "Because I do not either. You are still the one, Martha. You were the one I was searching for even when I did not know I was searching, and you always will be." They sat there together as the sun sank lower, surrounded by family and love, the desert wind soft and warm around them. And Martha thought back to that day 27 years ago when she had been running from her past, alone and desperate, and convinced she would never have anything good in her life. Thought about how she almost let Owen die in that desert, almost rode away and left him to the rustlers. But she had not. She had taken that shot, had saved his life, and in doing so had saved her own. She had found love in the most unlikely place, had been given a second chance when she thought there was no hope left, and she had taken that chance and built something beautiful from it. As the stars began to appear overhead, the same stars that had watched over them on that first ride back to Deeming so many years ago, Martha squeezed Owen's hand and smiled. They had made it. Against all odds, through all obstacles, they had found their way to this moment, this life, this love. And it was everything. The years continued their gentle march forward, and Owen and Martha's ranch became something of a legend in the area. People told stories about the reformed outlaw and the cowboy who loved her, about how they had built something lasting out of broken pieces. Young couples just starting out would sometimes ride by hoping to catch a glimpse of them, wanting to see proof that love could really conquer anything. Martha spent her later years writing down her story, encouraged by Mary and by several women's rights advocates who had heard about her life. She wrote honestly about everything, the good and the bad, wanting other women who had been through difficult times to know that survival was possible, that redemption was real. Her memoir was published in 1907 and became quite popular, leading to speaking engagements and even some legislative changes in how the law treated women who fought back against abusive men. Owen supported her through all of it, proud of her courage in sharing her story, in using her pain to help others. He traveled with her when she gave talks, sat in the audience and watched with amazement as his wife, who had once been so afraid of being seen, stood on stages and spoke her truth to hundreds of people. They celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary in 1907 with all their children and grandchildren gathered at the ranch. It was a joyous occasion, full of laughter and music and love. As Owen and Martha danced together under strings of lanterns hung between the trees, their children and grandchildren watching with tears in their eyes, it was clear to everyone present that they were witnessing something rare and precious. A love that had survived everything life could throw at it and come out stronger. 25 years, Martha said, looking up at Owen as they swayed to the music. Where did the time go? I do not know, Owen admitted, but I would not trade a single day of it. Even the hard days, even the scary days, I would live them all again if it meant ending up right here with you. You always know exactly what to say, Martha said, her eyes shining. How did I get so lucky? I think we both got lucky. Two lost souls who found each other in the desert and decided to build a life together. That is not luck. That is fate, Martha laughed. You are getting sentimental in your old age. I have earned the right to be sentimental. I am married to the most amazing woman in the world. I get to be as sentimental as I want. They danced until the music stopped, until their grandchildren were falling asleep on blankets spread under the stars, until the night grew cool and deep. And then they walked hand in hand to the house they had built together, climbed into the bed they had shared for 25 years, and fell asleep in each other's arms, grateful for another day, another night, another moment of this beautiful life they had created. Owen passed away peacefully in his sleep in 1912, at the age of 57, his heart simply deciding it had beaten enough times. Martha was beside him when it happened, and though her grief was deep and overwhelming, she also felt a kind of peace. They had had 34 years together, which was more than most people got. They had loved fully and deeply, without reservation or regret. And Owen had died happy, surrounded by family in the home he had built with his own hands. At his funeral, Martha spoke about the day they met, about how he had believed in her when she could not believe in herself, about how his love had transformed her from a running outlaw into a woman with roots and purpose. She spoke about his kindness, his steady strength, his absolute devotion to their family. There was not a dry eye in the church by the time she finished. Martha lived another 8 years after Owen died, staying on at the ranch with Jacob and his family, continuing to train horses and write and spend time with her ever-growing number of grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She never remarried, never even considered it. She had found her great love and nothing could replace what she and Owen had shared. She passed away in the spring of 1920, on a day that reminded her so much of that first day in the desert. The sky was that same brilliant blue, the air that same dry warmth. She died peacefully in her sleep, just as Owen had in the bed they had shared in the house he had built for her. Her children buried her next to Owen on a hill overlooking their ranch, with a headstone that read, Martha Oliver Brennan, beloved wife, mother, grandmother. She ran until she found home, found love, found peace. The ranch continued on, passed down through the generations, each new owner learning the story of Owen and Martha, of the outlaw and the cowboy who fell in love in the desert and built something lasting. Their story became a legend, told and retold, inspiring others to believe in second chances, in redemption, in the transformative power of love. And somewhere in whatever comes after this life, Owen and Martha were together again, riding through an endless desert under an endless sky, young and strong and in love, finally and forever free.